Hello darlings, I hope you've been well and I hope you've been coping healthily. Trigger warning, it's obviously about self-harm, the cycle of self-harm, types of self-harm, dealing with self-harm, everything to do with self-harm. So massive trigger warning if you're feeling too vulnerable for this topic. Click away and I hope to see you soon. I wanted this video to have some resources in it for people that self-harm, but also some advice for people like dealing with a loved one who self-harms. There's so many different types of self-harm that most young people probably aren't aware are self-harm. Cutting, burning, undereating or overeating, overdrinking, mishandling drugs, not looking whilst you cross the road, not wearing sun cream in the summer, burning on purpose, scratching, hitting, punching, hitting your head into walls. Things like smoking and overspending can be seen as self-harm. There's lots of things that are a grey area and a lot of professionals don't know if it counts as self-harm or not, but anything where you're harming yourself is self-harm in my opinion. Purposefully staying awake for nights on end, things like that, I see that as self-harm. There's also like more normalised forms of self-harm. Arguably tattoos and piercings are a form of self-harm. If you're doing it impulsively to escape these intense emotions, that is just normalised self-harm. Tattoos and piercings are a lot better and safer if you're going to a professional. I would say get the piercings and tattoos if you really want them. You've been thinking about this specific tattoo or piercing for a while rather than just getting it just to get it. Getting piercings can be a very healthy coping mechanism if you really like always wanted them and you're really caring for them afterwards. If you're getting piercings and you just neglect them, then that's probably self-harm. Decorating your body, adorning yourself with gorgeous things, that helps with your mental health so much. I don't think we should underestimate the power of that. Not dressing to please other people, but to make yourself feel good. This might be a really inappropriate segue. I partnered with sustainable jewelry brand Louisa from New York. They have offered you guys 20% off when you use my code AvaBenji20. They're very bougie. These are like an oval version of these. There's some like very business casual style shit. But then also they have edgy stuff. They're so versatile. They had these really cute little dagger earrings which I got. I love them. Don't look at my nails. They're fucking ugly. I haven't always been much of a jewelry person because of my sensory issues, but homeboy can get it. Honestly, I always shower in my Ana Luisa earrings because I know that they're not going anywhere. They don't go green. It's lit fam. All of their products have been extensively tested for like breakage, humidity, allergies, damage. They offer free US shipping, but around the world it comes super fast. The packaging is all sustainable too. Ana Luisa is crafted with the planet in mind. They're always offsetting 100% of their carbon footprint. I love their designs. They're just so like down with the kids. Wish Ana Luisa did belly button piercings. I prefer them light, but these don't like drag your ears down. Do you know what would be really cool if they did nose piercings as well?
Really cool. You know, it would make a perfect gift for Christmas. Just saying.
I've always wanted a pair of these. They're so cute. The little heart ones, they are my favourite earrings. If you're prone to like losing earrings, get on Ana Luisa because these little shits ain't coming out.
We cannot escape, we cannot come out.
If you're not totally satisfied, they'll send a replacement or reimburse you. No questions asked. So they're super transparent about everything. They make really good presents because they're good quality, they're lifelong pieces. I think the prices start at $39. It's very affordable for a sustainable piece of jewelry that's high quality. Climate neutral certified, the kind of earrings that you can enjoy for the rest of your life. Thank you so much to Ana Luisa. I love your jewelry so much. Link below for 20% off. Sometimes being vulnerable is quite awkward as well. You might say something and later think, oh, I shouldn't have said that. It can obviously be really shocking when an individual or your loved one tells you they self-harm or they show you their scars. Your instinct may be to stare or just go silent, to express shock or distaste. A lot of people's instinct is to say, stop doing that, stop doing it, will you stop that for me? It's important to remember that it's an addiction that can often be like lifelong. I think it's really important to avoid saying anything that will make them feel ashamed. Making them feel ashamed is quite dangerous because self-harm is already kind of triggered by shame, so there'll be a stressor or a trigger that will cause someone to take action and self-harm, and then they'll feel release from that action, and then they'll feel the guilt and the shame, and that built up shame and guilt turns into like self-disgust, and then they'll do it again again. As much as you want to say, why would you do that? Obviously you're in shock and you might want to say something like that, but please refrain, because shame, not only does it not help, it makes it worse. Self-harm is kind of rooted in shame. You don't want to just feel like you're enabling them by saying things like, why would you ruin your body? If you say something like that, it will stick with them. It would just make their self-shame a lot worse, and they already have a lot of self-shame about it, so there's no point. You can kind of just say anything other than something that will make them feel shameful, so you can validate them. You must have been going through such a hard time. What can I do to help? Something like that. It's a difficult subject that can like throw you off guard. You can just suddenly freeze and not know what to say. If you think that they're in like serious risk, you don't have to keep it confidential. You should advise them to seek help. It can be very painful for the self-harmer, because self-harm is a very private thing most times, so obviously they're not going to want to like tell the world. Just care and support them. Don't pity them, instead show compassion. People that self-harm, they will not want the world to know, and they'll go to extreme lengths to hide their self-harm. For example, wearing long sleeves in the summer, that's the only example I can kind of give right now. Most individuals do not use self-harm as a way to bring attention to themselves. They don't want the excess attention. However, self-harming for attention is a very real thing. It's just a cry for help. Wanting your self-harm scars to be noticed is a way of them wanting validation. They want to be taken seriously. A lot of people, they have this idea that they will be loved like a child if they are sick and people notice them suffering. They might go to extreme lengths to get that, and that's not them being a bad person or a selfish person. Once they get taught the communication skills they need, they will verbalize their struggles and get the emotional support they need. It's usually a very, very private thing where people will suffer in silence, and they could suffer in silence for their whole lives without telling a single soul because of how stigmatized it is. To self-harm simply for an emotional reaction from someone else, we're crossing the line into like emotional abuse a little bit here. Don't try to guilt them out of it by telling them about how their actions affect others. They are so aware, and the guilt and shame that they already feel is so high that it triggers them to self-harm again. It's such an addiction. Someone's not gonna be cured of it just because it's affecting other people. That's just how it is. Don't give ultimatum. If you don't stop self-harming, I'm gonna leave. It's toxic. Don't remind them how it looks or what other people would think. They're gonna live with these scars for the rest of their life. Don't point out the physicalities of it.
You know, I see scars all over a girl's arms, and it just like, it hurts me so much to see it because I used to be there. And I don't talk about it. I just look at them and I grab their shoulders and I'm just like, please be good to yourself. Like, because you don't, when you see something like that, you do not comment. Do not talk about the scars people have on their arms ever. Don't be like, oh, what's that? You know, I had band-aids all up my wrist for like months, and it was always like, what'd you do? Bitch, what would I do to like get a scratch there?
A lot of people just make assumptions about self-harm, like they're only doing it for attention, they're a teenager, they'll grow out of it. Don't make any assumptions. Literally anyone can self-harm for any reason. Sadly, boys self-harm too. It goes more unreported. They're probably just like less likely to reach out about it. Stay emotionally neutral. I think it's best not to like make a massive deal out of it. You can't understand why someone would do that to themselves. Just respect them anyway. Listen to them even if what they're saying is making you extremely uncomfortable. Encourage them to use their voice rather than their body as a means of self-expression. So by saying things like, you don't have to do so and so to communicate that you're struggling. If they're not already aware, they can talk to you about these things. Make them aware. Simply telling an individual to stop self-harming is not productive. In addition, by like banning self-harm, it will often push the individual to just keep it more secret. If you, for example, throw away their self-harming equipment, they're just gonna go and get more. But what you can do is lead them to do it safely by asking them, what do you use? Ask them if it's clean, ask them how they're doing aftercare, so if they're using plasters, sterile wipes and stuff. Conversations around safer self-harming, harm reduction, distraction techniques, avoidance techniques. Trying to ban self-harm probably won't work, and it'll probably just lead to them being more secretive about it. It's believed that around 10% of young people self-harm, but it could be as high as 20 to 30%. It's so ridiculously common, and I wish more people knew that. Statistics are difficult to get as well because most self-harm goes unrecorded. It includes those without mental health conditions. Sometimes neurotypical people do it. Most young people have reported to start to hurt themselves around the age of 12. I think being taught healthy coping mechanisms around the age of like 10 should so be implemented in schools. Self-Harm UK found that 24% of boys aged 16 to 24 self-harm. 24% of boys is quite a lot of boys. A lot of people's response to self-harm is, are you trying to kill yourself? A lot of people just think that self-harm is attempted suicide, or they think it's the same thing as suicide. Self-harm usually does not have the intention of suicide. It often has very different motivations. Self-harming is a very dangerous coping strategy rather than a bid to end one's life. Statistically, you are more likely to commit suicide if you self-harm. That being said, self-harm and suicide is not the same thing. Distraction techniques. These are things that everyone should do when they're feeling emotional distress. Self-harm urges are so strong. If you're having self-harm urges, try and use every single other healthy form of coping before you turn to that. You might find by the end you're too tired, you're emotionally regulated now, you don't feel the need. As trivial as these things are, like have a cup of tea, have a shower, eat a banana, sometimes it actually helps. Play with a stim toy. It might be like a sensory seeking thing. Get some Play-Doh, get some stim toys, watch some TV while stimming. Flick a hairband on your wrist. It helps some people to hold ice cubes. Some people like to draw on their skin. There's also these like self-harming pens that release essential oils and they kind of emulate the scratchy feeling. Apparently they're like really great. Some people like to hit pillows. Squishmallows are good. Well, actually Squishmallows support Israel, so like get something secondhand or something. Some people like to push against a wall. I know I like floor time, having like a hot shower, but obviously not too hot, or because that can be a form of self-harm. I think it's good to stay with people whilst you're having these urges as well. Being around someone's good, watching a film with someone, call a friend. You don't even have to talk about self-harm with these people. Try and do as many of these distraction techniques in a row as you physically can. Do something creative, paint, draw, write, punch needle, like making little rugs is super fun. Tactile things, scrapbooking, something to do with yarn. I recently learned how to do my own acrylic nails. Doing something where you physically actually can't do anything else, painting your nails so you have to wait for them to dry and stuff. That's like the perfect thing. Watch a movie, make playlists, listen to music, watch interviews on YouTube, look at self-help websites, free DBT resources online, scribble angry drawings, meditate. If you like ASMR videos, that's perfect. You can make a safe box. Like in DBT they teach you how to make these. Anything that brings you comfort, things that you can see, touch and smell, photographs, puzzles, browsing the internet on eBay, reading, playing the guitar, playing an instrument, charity shopping, like physically getting out the house. Physically distancing yourself from it might actually be the best thing. I like embracing my pale skin, but I've heard that fake tan's a really good self-harm distraction technique. You have to like let it dry and shit. I don't know. Exercise in moderation. Over-exercising is a thing and that could easily turn into self-harm. Another good distraction technique is doing something nice for your loved ones. Make them a simple cup of tea. Walking the dog and stroking the dog, that's a good one. But those are kind of all of the distraction techniques I can think of right now. There's probably thousands of them out there. It would be really cool if you could comment your favourite distraction techniques. We can all give each other tips and stuff. It's about like finding what works best for you, I guess. Treatment options, you're going to want to go to the GP. I can't emphasize enough how big this trigger warning needs to be. Honestly, they might invalidate you. There's a term called superficial cuts in the health industry. They don't mean you're not sick enough to deserve help. They're saying that in the sense that you don't need like urgent medical attention right now. If you go to the GP and they tell you they're superficial all you're going to want to do is get worse. If you go to the GP for any mental health crisis, you might be invalidated in some way or another, but it does not mean that you shouldn't reach out. It does not matter how superficial they are. Anyone who does that needs help, no matter how severe or how superficial. Everyone deserves help. The same exact thing goes for eating disorders. Doesn't matter what a person physically presents themselves as. No one can see your brain. It triggers me. If you're self-harming at all, then you need help. It doesn't matter how bad it is. If you're self-harming, then it is bad. Literally fuck anyone who tries to invalidate you and tell you that you aren't sick enough for help yet. You're struggling and you deserve to be taken seriously, and at the end of the day, it's the emotional pain that has triggered the self-harm. So it's the emotional pain that needs validating the most. Like, people really focus so much on the physical things, the look of things. Obviously, like, the physical danger of things is super important too, but it's the mental health that got you to the point of self-harm that needs attention. I've had invalidating experiences from GPs, but at the end of the day, you probably know more about mental health than them. It's possible for anyone to recover from self-harm and to live a full life without feeling the need to self-harm anymore, but for many, recovery is a lengthy process. People just think self-harm is a phase. The longer a person self-harms, the longer it's going to take to break the pattern of behaviour. It's not going to just be a quick fix. It can take individuals a lifetime to find recovery. A person will not stop unless they want to stop. Wanting to stop looks like being sick and tired of being sick and tired. Recovery is possible. Anyone can recover from self-harm. You don't have to live your life this way. Don't be afraid to use those helplines. You might be thinking, oh, there's people that have it worse than me, but they're there exactly for people like you. If you're scared to call them, try texting them. If you are having all these triggers and urges, call someone. Don't feel guilty about reaching out. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so sorry if this triggered you in any way. I'd hate to be the reason someone was re-triggered. No matter how explicit, I think it's a super important conversation to have. After watching like one of these kind of videos, it can just bring up old traumas and stuff, and it could just make you feel loads of uncomfortable emotions. So now is a good time probably to distract yourself with a funny video or something to do with distraction techniques. Take care of yourself. Be gentle with yourself. You might not want to do that because you don't think you deserve that, but trust me, you do. I don't want this to sound like guilt shamey, but take in consideration your loved ones. You are loved. Take care of yourself, please. I'm sending all my love. You're so important. Take care, and I'll see you in my next video.